Let's get on to the world's leading research and rating agency. The S&P Global says that emerging market sovereigns that are lucky to tick the right boxes, the new sources of capital, are likely to be welcomed with open arms. That comment came after Côte d'Ivoire issued $2.6 billion in Eurobond last month. That offer was followed a few days ago by the Republic of Benin. The West African state pulled an order book of $5 billion for an offer of just $750 million. Next is Kenya, prepping a fresh multi-million Japanese bond, $500 million, while announcing an early retirement of its $2 billion maturing in June. The question is Sub-Saharan Africa back in the global debt market? And is Nigeria ready to hit the Eurobond button? Welcome my guest on this from our Abuja studios, Professor Ken Ife, a public policy analyst and a development economist. A good evening to you, Professor. I hope you had a great week so far.
Oh, hi. Good evening, and thank you for having me.
We appreciate your time. From Ivory Coast to Benin Republic to Kenya at the global debt market, do you think the season of Eurobond offering has arrived again for sub-Saharan African sovereigns?
I think it has, actually. I think it has, because if you look at the trail of events, there was an end to quantitative easing. And then America decided that they were going to start opening the rates. Okay, you had COVID. COVID came and worsened the balances for especially the emerging economies. And then what then happens next? You're now seeing the interest rates and then inflation rates and NPR rates all rise in America and Europe. Of course, this is at the back of stagflation, which makes it even more difficult. But now it has picked up and it's now started to reverse. You now have the interest rates coming down. You have the Treasury, American US Treasury bills, the yield on them are coming down. So all those capital flights from our countries who were concerned about fiscal stress or all kinds of catastrophe that have gone away, they are now looking for a way back into the market. So they need somebody to send the market signal. IMF stands in there to send that market signal. And that's why IMF was looking at Kenya, looking at all those countries that they are trying to show up. That is the signal that they want to see. But then they now said, okay, you also have to handshake with the development partners and you have to look at more buttons that you are going to tick: performance, reform. So there are certain things that they now have to use as benchmarks for these emerging economies to get into the full swing. So that's actually how it is going. And you see those signals from these Francophone countries, Côte d'Ivoire and Benin, that are now in the market. And they are getting oversubscribed for the $2.6 billion in two tranches from Côte d'Ivoire. You could see that they already had almost $8 billion very subscribed, over 300% subscribed. And that is what you see going forward. And I think Nigeria will jump into that market anyway, sooner than later.
But again, it looks like this offering is coming on the back of the International Monetary Fund that is warming up to more sovereigns in Africa and elsewhere to help ease their debt burden. If that means using new IMF loans to repay existing IMF loans, as we have the situation in Pakistan. Well, what are your thoughts using new IMF money to repay IMF existing debt?
Well, but it's, you only get more debt to repay old debt so that you can stay afloat. It's typical. You either do that, borrow more to repay old ones and then move on, or you go for rejigging the loans, or you actually go for, you have more loans. Don't forget that we also have the SDRs to contend with, which is the special drawing rights. So they're all there in the frame. So the answer is yes, but you have to give the market that assurance that you are not going to have the experiences of Ghana and Kenya are not going to lead to contagion. And then secondly, it's not going to lead to fiscal stress, that things are being done. And what are the things that are being done? There are reform programs. They are ticking all these boxes. And so it's that kind of assurance that the market requires to quietly pull out from declining yield in the securities of the US and some of these European countries, and then head down to our own advantage. We do need those monies to flow in here to help us sort out the chaos we have in foreign exchange.
So how should Nigeria, you mentioned Nigeria a little bit earlier in your comment, how should Nigeria approach its next line of global borrowings from these multilateral institutions in view of the country's crunching fiscal and economic positions at the moment?
Well, even within the budget, we prefer to do more around external borrowing, and for reasons that we actually need the dollar to even service the loans, and for other reasons to settle the market. The market is very, very unstable at the moment. Then we also have a commitment. I think we've seen the $1.5 billion from central bank, although that's a budget support, but at concessionary rates. So anything concessionary we will go with. Then also, we also needed to keep away as much as possible from domestic borrowing so we don't crowd out private sector investment. Things are very, very rough right now from private sector because the central bank is waving that flag that they are not likely to keep on with intervention, domestic finance intervention. So you need to give them that space for them to be able to find, borrow. And the economy that doesn't borrow is in serious trouble. Then you also have the possibility that our even blending from development finance institutions, we're going to, but the finance minister made it very clear that it has to be on the basis of cost-benefit analysis. It's no longer going to be on the basis of promissory note, we promise to pay in 5 years, give us the money. No, it wants to make sure that these monies are fit for the purpose, that they comply with FRA 2007, that you can say, yes, there is valid and solid cost-benefit analysis that this is capable of repaying itself, and there are good plans to that effect. So we will borrow money. There's no doubt. There's nothing wrong in borrowing, but everything is wrong when you borrow for the wrong purpose and then you don't have any plan to repay the money.
But do you think we have other fiscal revamping options for Nigeria to explore in terms of borrowing? For example, Mr. President, and maybe you saw the press statement yesterday jointly issued by the Central Bank and the NNPC in terms of bringing all the funds to the table, a portion of NNPC money in the Central Bank, a portion, as it were, in the commercial banks without actually disclosing the percentage and what have you, what would be there. Do you think we're trying to tick the right boxes, as the S&P Global says, that could prepare Nigeria, even the commercial creditors, to say, look, these folks are ready, they are doing the right thing. When they come to the market, we should give them all they're asking for?
I think we are ticking the right boxes with respect to the fiscal side. Because to be honest with you, we need to have the fiscal side play up for us to be able to have a chance of the monetary side succeeding. So I like what is going on. Now there's more drive to have more transparency on the NNPC business. Then also, of course, I keep saying that we should still find a way of taking the NNPC to the capital market. That is really where corporate governance will take full control, and then we'll begin to get resources as we do from LNG. Then, of course, we are also moving gradually. There's less emphasis now on debt-based financing, and we are heading out now on asset-based financing. And you've seen the securitization of future revenue on the LNG. You've seen that, and that's coming in. You've seen more securitization of crude from the Afrexim Bank, and you've seen that 3 billion have hit the ground. And then there are more and more. You've seen some deal coming from India. Yeah, you see all of that, 14 billion and 3.5 billion. They're all coming, but they're all on our assets rather than appearing on our balance sheet as debt. So that's a much more comfortable position. We are borrowing, but we're not paying interest for those. And we are basing it on the assets that we have. So they are now unlocking liquidity from our assets. So that's a different ball game, really different ball game. And then, of course, if you remember that the president said 3 things. He wanted an credit expansion, consumer credit expansion. We need to have more things done there. Of course, there is some budget. I know about 500 billion is somewhere there to begin to push for that side. Then he also talked in the 2 presidential orders, one of which is to open up all the sequestered money so that we can bring them all into the domestic economy. But much more importantly, he talked about raising instruments, domestic instruments, bonds in the country, so that will reduce the currency risks that are associated with foreign bond. So that is something that we need to look, we want to see more in that direction. Many more things. But the good thing is that the fiscal authorities are very, very warm and proactive this time around, and there is synergy and coordination and alignment between fiscal and monetary policy. These guys are working together, without being told.
All right, we enjoyed those insights from you. As always, Professor Ken Ife, we thank you for your time. Do have a wonderful weekend ahead. Thank you very much.